Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the new iPad Air SmartCase, which now stickers for $80 because it is leather only. Now, the previous SmartCase for the iPad 2, 3, and 4 was a polyurethane case, which was not available in leather. As you can see, it was also a four-fold design versus the now smaller design here, which kind of resembles the smart cover of the iPad mini. So the SmartCase completely wraps the back of the iPad, plus protects the front of the iPad, and works with that sleep-wake feature, which works with the magnets built into the iPad. Of course, I also have the brown version here, which I think works best with white. This will be covering my black iPad Air. Now, as I said, this sticker is for a fairly hefty $80, while we still have the smart covers, which sticker for $40 each. Now, this is available in green, which to me is kind of a yellow color. You also have a cream color or beige, blue, the brown color I have here as well, black, and product red, which is an Apple Store exclusive. All right, so if you look on the back, you can see exactly how this works. Now, if you're familiar with the smart covers and smart cases, you can see you have that full design for propping up your iPad, either in a keyboard mode or a landscape orientation. And of course, it does wake up and put your iPad to sleep. You can see it completely covers everything around the iPad, and we're going to demonstrate that once we get it out. All right, so I'm just going to peel back this tab, and we're going to push it through to open it. All right, so there is our smart case, and inside you can see the color-matched microfiber material. And the interesting thing here is that there's actually sort of a embossed, or not embossed, but polished finish around the plastic window for the 3G or LTE version of the iPad. As you can see, they give us the cutouts for the dual microphones, the cutouts for the headphone jack, as well as for the camera. Now you can see we have covered buttons for the volume, as well as the sleep-wake switch, and we have an opening for the switch on the side. On the bottom, you see iPad SmartCase, product red, designed by Apple in California, assembled in China. You have your cutout for the lightning connector. You have specific micro-drilled cutouts for the speaker grills, so they do line up perfectly with the micro-drilled holes on the iPad itself. Now you can see that microfiber material completely wraps the inside and all the way to the edge, while it transitions to the leather material along the side. So let's go ahead and install our iPad Air, and here I have my space gray iPad Air with the black bezel, and I think red goes perfect with it. So all you have to do is drop it into place. It snaps in, closes up, locks your iPad, and if you go to open it up, wakes it up for you. So it works pretty nice, and as you can see, it has a really nice form-fitting design. It's very thin. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to it. It gives you enough room to operate the switch up here. There's plenty of room there. It doesn't really impede operation at all. And the buttons remain tactile through the case, both the sleep-wake button and the volume controls. And as you can see, you have the cutouts for the microphones as well as your headphone jack. There's an ample opening there, but larger headset plugs may be blocked by this. Along the bottom, you have your opening for the lightning connector, which is a bit larger than the one that Apple provides, so third-party accessories may work with this case. You also have your speaker grills, which are lined up perfectly with the holes on the case. Now, if you look closely at the side, you can see that the cover is pretty flush here. It's a little hard sometimes to find it, to lift up the cover, but it's not as bad as it was on the iPad 4th generation. So the cover was actually set back from the edge of it, and it's kind of hard sometimes to get your finger under there to lift it up. So I actually prefer what they've done here with the new design. So it lifts up, as you can see, wakes it up. It is magnetic, so it does hold to the glass pretty well. You can see you can shake it, it doesn't release. And you can fold it back, just like before, and it magnetically adheres to the back of the iPad. So it's not quite secure, but it does a pretty good job holding on to it. Now, they have substantially improved the stiffness of the case. So you can see along either edge of it, it's pretty tight to the body of the iPad Air. That's in stark contrast to the smart case from the second, third, and fourth generation, which was pretty floppy here. So you can see you kind of peel it back, you can stick your finger under there. So it wasn't a really secure fit. It didn't come off very easily. It was just kind of floppy and loose feeling. And that's because this wasn't a rigid case. It was pretty much a soft case that had a sort of a stiffer bezel around it. But it was kind of soft and floppy, and a lot of people complained about it. But I still like the case a lot, and this design improvement makes it even better. Now, once again, we have this cover which rolls back to form a prop for the iPad. So you have keyboard orientation for typing on the screen, and you have landscape orientation for propping up the iPad. Now, as you can see, there's kind of a problem with this design. Similar to the iPad mini, it doesn't really have a strong magnetic hold. And that's because it doesn't overlap itself. It just kind of magnetically adheres to the hinge of the case. So it makes it a lot more precarious. So for example, if you're in landscape orientation and you tap the screen, it has a tendency to want to collapse. So that makes it kind of a weak stand for your iPad. Now this is in contrast to what Apple did with the last SmartCase and Smart Cover for the larger iPads. You can see that it actually performed a more secure hold because it overlapped itself. There were 4 segments here instead of just 3 segments. So there was a lot more magnets holding that prop back than there are now. So the only problem here, as you can see, is that the angle was a lot steeper. So it had a tendency to want to flip forward, but it was less likely to collapse when you pushed on the back of it, as opposed to this. So there's definitely a problem with this case, especially since the iPad is still kind of heavy for it. Even though it's a lighter iPad, it's still a little too heavy for this kind of light magnetic hold on the SmartCase. Now the other disappointing thing for me is that I used to use this as a grip for the iPad, but it's not secure at all, so it just wants to collapse all the time when I'm using it. So there you go, it kind of folds up and that's it. So I guess you could use it in sort of this orientation, gives you some grip to hold onto the iPad as opposed to kind of letting it flop back like that. So I probably would end up using it like this to hold on to the iPad. Now if you looked at that old SmartCase, I can grip as hard as I want on that triangle and it wouldn't collapse. Now let's go and take a look at the brown SmartCase. I actually bought this for the white iPad Air. So inside we have the case, and if you look at the interior, again, we have this matching microfiber cloth material to protect the iPad and clean the screen. You can also see that embossed surface. It's kind of smoothed out here for the plastic window on the back of the cellular version of the iPad. Again, iPad SmartCase designed by Apple in California, assembled in China. We have our Apple logo on the back. We have all our covered buttons with the openings we need. And let's go ahead and stick it on the white iPad to see how it looks. All right, just drop it in, snap it into place. And there we go, works pretty nice. Now if you look at the side, you can see there is a raised lip just a little bit, which allows the cover to sort of fit over the edge pretty snugly. Now in terms of taking this on and off, it is pretty stiff, but the best way to do it is to sort of pop it off at either corner. And once you do that, it comes right out. Now the good thing about this design is that it's less likely to move around. So for example, if you look at the four-fold design of the SmartCase, it was pretty floppy, and if this was in your bag, it had a tendency to move around and constantly wake up and put your iPad to sleep. Now of course this is aniline dyed leather, so it will discolor with age. So for example, if you look at the same brown case on my iPhone 5S, you can see it has discolored. Of course you can clean this with leather cleaner, but I don't really do it too often. You can see it does weather, and some people like that look. I actually like it. It's not too bad. But if you don't want to see this discoloring, you may want to go with a black case, which is less likely to show it. So in conclusion, I'm actually pretty impressed by the SmartCase. Of course, it is pretty pricey at 80 bucks, but it is a high quality case made of very nice materials that is perfectly designed for the iPad. It fits it perfectly. There are no weak spots here. Completely seals up the iPad without adding a lot of bulk. It's got that nice interior liner to protect the iPad as well as keep the screen clean. It doesn't move around too much. And of course you have the Apple branding preserved through this case, which is nice. You have your cutouts, which are perfectly lined up with the iPad's cutouts for the microphones and ports, as well as perfectly lined up micro drilled holes for the speaker. So a really high quality product. Of course, I'm not a big fan of how this trifold works. It could be done better. But otherwise, I really like this case, and I don't really plan to search for another one. So that's going to do it for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.